First, let's have some talk. Japan, the country of rising sun. Japan is third largest economy after US, China. Japan is one of the most developed nations in the world. During the World War II, Japan was against the Allied powers. So Japan was defeated on various fronts by the Axis powers. The major shocks were atomic attack on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Still, Japan managed to rise from ashes and became the second largest economy after US in 20th century itself. This economic progress of Japan is known as Japanese economic miracle. So today, in the third episode here at AnaVerse, we are going to discuss about Japanese economic miracle and how did Japan manage to achieve its economic growth. So let's get started. Firstly, we will analyze what happened to Japan during World War II. During World War II, Allied parties' raids on Japan were not on only Hiroshima and Nagasaki but on the major cities in the Japan. Aeroplane B-29 bomber deployed a little man on the Hiroshima on 6th August 1945 and Fat Man on Nagasaki on 9th August 1945. Lots of casualties. The total number is 210,000 by the year's end. So, this forced Japan to a formal surrender. It was signed on the 2nd September in Tokyo Bay aboard the battleship USS Missouri. After this surrender, let us understand what was the situation of Japan after World War II. After World War II, Japan's cities were destroyed, the stockpiles available at Japan were exhausted, industrial capacity of Japan gutted, and there was alarming shortage of food and there was rising inflation. Japan was on the verge of famine. As a defeated member, government stood without prestige or respect. All about things threatened what remained of national strength of Japan. Due to that, US faced a strong criticism from its allied parties. So what was the stand of America after World War II? After World War II, the USA established a significant presence in Japan to slow the expansion of Soviet in the Pacific. US was also concerned with the growth of Japan as there was a risk that unhappy and poor Japanese population would turn to a communalism. And of course, there was a rivalry between USA and Soviet Union to conquer the world. So, US aided Japanese economic reconstruction. So, how did the USA aid Japan? America absorbed Japanese exports. America tolerated controversial Japanese trade policies. It subsidized Japanese economy. USA transferred technology to Japanese firms in order to develop themselves. All this resulted into magnifying effectiveness of Japanese trade policy. Now we are going to know that how did Japan recovered after World War II? What made Japan the second largest economy after the USA? What was the crazy thing that Japanese people did? And what can India learn from Japan? So, let's get started. We are going to understand what were the distinguishing characteristics of this Japanese economic miracle. The first one is Kiretsu. So, what is Kiretsu? It is the cooperation of manufacturers, suppliers, distributors, and the banks in the close-knit group. This enforced economic development of Japan because all the manufacturers, suppliers, and distributors had stakes in each other, and all these were supported by banks, where the banks gave loans to all three entities. The next thing is powerful enterprise unions and Shinto. So, what is Shinto? Shinto literally translated as spring wage offensive, which means during the spring, the enterprise unions discussed their annual wages with the enterprise. Strong relationship among the workers strengthened their position. The next thing is good relations with the government bureaucrats. Japanese industries maintained a very good relation with the government bureaucrats. The next thing is Sushin Koyo. Sushin Koyo means lifetime employment guarantee. This enabled worker to work for an enterprise with full dedication, which resulted into increase in the production and manufacturing. In order to achieve the economic growth of a particular country, the government of that country plays a vital role. So, Japanese government also played a crucial role in the economic development of their country and their government made some contributions. In order to understand what government contributions were made, we have to understand what was the situation of Japan. After World War II, Japan had first least efficient agriculture sector and second high technology gap compared to rest of the world. So it is needed either to increase the efficiency of agriculture sector or to promote another sector and secondly to close the technology gap. So what their government did is it stimulated private sector growth by instituting regulations and protectionism that effectively managed economic crisis and secondly it concentrated on the trade expansion. That means Japanese government promoted export and it reduced their imports and it gave protection to domestic manufacturers. All these resulted into the economic growth of Japan. So now let us understand what does the history tells us. There are four stages of Japanese economic development. The first one is the recovery phase. It started from 1946 to 1954. The next phase is the high increase. During this phase, Japan witnessed the high increase in their production and manufacturing, especially in the iron and steel industry. The period started in 1955 till 1972. The third phase is the steady increase. The steady increase phase started in 1972 and it lasted till 1992, that means till the end of Cold War era. The last and fourth stage is the low increase phase. It started from 1992 until today. Here is the map which shows the growth trends in the Japan. As shown in the graph, we can see that first phase is the recovery phase. The second phase is a sharp increase in their economic status and their income per capita, GDP per capita. Next thing is the steady phase. This includes the steady increase in their GDP and the last phase is low increase, that is low GDP growth rate. There were major key contributions and major key factors that accelerated Japanese economic growth. PM Hayato Ikeda had made various administrative changes. He focused on the heavy industrialization. Japan made overloading, that is, providing more loans and encouraging more industries. This overloading is made through the Bank of Japan. Bank of Japan lent money to city banks, which in turn gave money to industrial conglomerates, that is, Kiretsu. The next is foreign exchange allocation policy, which includes import control and export promotion. This resulted into reducing the trade deficit of the country. The country also focused on vast consumption. Vast consumption resulted into increasing the standard of living of the people and high standard of living also resulted into high consumption. So all these in loop increased the productivity of the country and accelerated GDP growth rate. The central bank in Japan reduced the interest rate. This measure was taken in order to increase the investment in the country. There is an organization which played crucial role in Japan's economic development, which is Ministry of International Trade and Industry. So we are going to understand what was the role of Ministry of International Trade and Industry, MITI. Samiti coordinated various industries, including iron and steel industry, cement industry, coal industry, and computer industry as well. It boosted industrial security by untying imports of technology with the imports of other goods. MITI also regulated all imports. MITI also exercised power over foreign exchange budget. Ministry of Trade and Industry established Japan Development Bank in order to provide low-cost capital to private sector and to accelerate their growth. So all this resulted into growth of Japan and economic development of the country what we see now. So this is the story of Japanese economic miracle. But this is not the end. Japanese economic development story is not all good fairy tale story. It also had some controversies. So what were the controversies? American companies sued Japanese companies for intellectual property theft and patent infringement. In 1978, Japan subsidized semiconductor companies for dumping. Japan subsidized their semiconductor companies and it sold semiconductor chips at higher rate in Japan and at lower rates in USA. This is called as dumping. Companies like Hitachi, Sumitomo, Minolta, Toshiba faced criticism in this area. Some of these companies also stood for trial in American courts. So we are going to understand what is the takeaway for India from this Japanese story. What can we learn from Japan? The first thing is having effective coordination in between government and private sector and banks as well. Second thing is adopting efficient trade policies which including promotion of export. The next thing is promoting domestic manufacturing and consumption. And yes, India is promoting domestic manufacturing by Make in India program. The next thing is effective use of workforce. As we all know that India has highest number of workforce available. So it is very important and crucial for India to make effective use of it for the benefit of the country. And the last thing is upgrading to latest technologies. And that is the investment in the space sector and science and technology and biotech as well. So this is it for today.
Thank you. Like, share, and subscribe.